So today I want us to talk about Christian stewardship. Who is a Christian steward? What does stewardship, what does that even entail? Now, for me, I believe it's so important for us to recognize that once we have turned our lives over to Christ, once we've said we are believers and we become believers because we've accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ, we've accepted Him as the salvation for the world, we've appropriated that into our lives, and now we've become new creatures. That is the beginning. The expectation of God of us is that we become stewards. We become people who dedicate ourselves to the service of God. We dedicate ourselves to the service of the kingdom. That is God's expectation of us. And therefore, when we talk about stewardship is about service. Christian stewardship is about service. It's not about serving yourself. It's about service to God. It is managing the resources that God has committed into our hands. The skill He has given to you, the talent He has given to you, managing those ones effectively to produce a worthy service. If you look at 1 Peter chapter 4 in verse 10, 1 Peter chapter 4 in verse 10, I'm going to read the Amplified Version. It says, just as each one of you has received a special gift, a spiritual talent, an ability graciously given by God, employ those talents in serving one another as is appropriate for good stewards of God, multifaceted grace, faithfully using diverse, varied gifts and ability granted to Christians by God's unmerited favor. So there you have it. We've been granted diverse gifts. We need to use that for the service of God. Also, as believers, we must recognize that in stewardship, there is a place of accountability. God is going to call us to account one day for how we've used the gift that He has given to us. Very important. Look at Luke chapter 16 in verses 1 and 2. He said to His disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that this man was wasting his goods. So He called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship. There is going to be a time where we need to give an account of our service, of our stewardship. Are you wasting the talent, the gifting of God upon your life? Are you using that on things that will not matter at the end of time? Those skills that He has given to you, you can play the instrument, you can sing very well, you can talk properly, you are somebody that has way with words, you can speak to people. Use those talents, those gifts, bring them into the kingdom for kingdom service. Very much needed, even much more at this time than ever before, because you recognize that there will be a time where we are going to be called to give account of our stewardship. And as believers, we need to always make sure that we walk with eternity in view. And therefore, I'm going to give you 3 things very quickly that stewards must be aware of. Christian stewards. Number 1, a Christian steward must be faithful. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, in verse 2, it says, moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. When you talk about being faithful, you're talking about being reliable. As a child of God, as a believer, you are reliable. God is able to count on you. God is able to say, I know him. Just like He said about Abraham, I know He will command His house after me. That is very important for us. Number 2, that a steward must be blameless. In Titus chapter 1, in verse 7, Titus chapter 1, in verse 7, for a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not son angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. You see there that it says you must be blameless. Being blameless means you are upright, you are just, you are faultless, you are innocent, you are above reproach. That is the expectation of God for a steward. Another expectation of God, still we see there, you are not self-willed. It's not about you. It is about God. It's not about your way. It's about God's will. That is very important to understand, that stewards are not their own masters. They are responsible to a master, And for Christians, we are responsible to God. We are responsible to God through Christ. And therefore, that is where our allegiance and loyalty lies. Not with the state, not with people, not with our families, not with our friends. Our allegiance, our loyalty, it starts with God. And anything that negates that, we are saying, no, I give my totality and my allegiance is only to God. And finally, for a steward of God, for a Christian steward, you must be instructable. You must be instructable. Look at Genesis chapter 44 in verse 1. Genesis chapter 44. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sack with food as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack. But look at the word there. And he commanded the steward of his house. The steward is instructable. The steward can receive instruction. The steward is teachable. Are you teachable? Are you open to receive? When the instruction is from God, are you still arguing? Are you still complaining? God's expectation for you as a faithful steward is that you are teachable. When he says go, you are going. When he says come, you come. When he says sit, you sit. And that is situated with a steward that aligns himself at all times with the will of the master. I want to commit you and commit myself also that God will find us as believers in him, faithful stewards, so that at the end of time, we will receive our reward in Jesus' name. Until I see you on the next one, stay blessed.